Over the years, humanity has tried its best in predicting what is to come. We try to calculate future outcome based on recent events. This way, we are given the opportunity to plan and prepare for anything that might or might not happen. The Russian and Ukraine war has left war experts and the world at large guessing what will happen next. Two recurring questions going through our minds are, will there be a new world order? Is there a possibility that there will be a nuclear war? In today's video, we will be taking you through a journey discussing these two likely outcomes. Let's go. New World Order. The concept of a New World Order has been used in different ways by different people and organizations throughout history. However, in general, it refers to a new system of international relations or global governance that replaces the old one. The idea is that the world is constantly changing, and that new challenges and opportunities require new ways of thinking and acting. One of the most famous uses of the term New World Order was in the early 1990s, after the fall of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War. At that time, many political leaders and commentators saw an opportunity to create a more peaceful and prosperous world, free from the threats of nuclear war and ideological conflict. Some even spoke of a peace dividend that would allow for greater investment in social welfare, infrastructure, and environmental protection. It is important to note that the concept of a New World Order is not specific to any one country, and is a broader vision for global governance and international relations. However, Russia has expressed its own perspective on what it sees as the future of international relations and the world order. In recent years, Russia has emphasized the importance of a multipolar world order, where power is more evenly distributed among multiple countries rather than dominated by a single superpower. Russian leaders have criticized what they see as US attempts to impose its will on the world, and have called for a more equal and cooperative global system. Russia has also emphasized the importance of respecting the sovereignty and independence of individual nations, as well as promoting international law and order. Russian leaders have expressed concern about what they see as the erosion of the international system, particularly in the wake of the 2014 crisis in Ukraine and the subsequent imposition of sanctions by the West. In terms of concrete actions, Russia has sought to strengthen its alliances with other countries, particularly those that share its perspective on global governance. For example, Russia has formed closer ties with China and other members of the BRICS group, as well as with countries such as Syria and Iran. It has also advocated for the expansion of international organizations such as the United Nations, where Russia holds a permanent seat on the Security Council. If Russia emerged from this war victorious, the government could potentially use the victory to consolidate power and increase its authority. However, this could also lead to increased authoritarianism and a clampdown on dissent. Who is leading the current world order? The United States has been the dominant global power since the end of World War II and has played a significant role in shaping the global order. The United States has a large and powerful economy, a strong military, and significant cultural influence around the world. The United States has also been a key driver of international institutions such as the United Nations and the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. However, in recent years, there have been a number of challenges to US global leadership. Some have argued that the United States has been overextended by its military engagements in the Middle East, and that its economic and political power has been eroded by the rise of other countries, particularly China. Can Russia emerge as the leader of the New World Order? While Russia has long been a major global power, it is difficult to envision Russia becoming the New World Order in the way that the United States has been since the end of World War II. There are several reasons for this. Number one, economic power. While Russia has significant natural resources and a large economy, its economic power pales in comparison to that of the United States or China. Russia's economy is heavily dependent on natural resource exports, particularly oil and gas, and is vulnerable to fluctuations in global commodity prices. Number two, soft power. Russia's influence on global culture, education, and other forms of soft power is also relatively limited, particularly compared to the United States. The English language, Hollywood films, and American music, for example, have had a profound impact on global culture in recent decades. Number three, political system. The nature of Russia's political system is also a barrier to its emergence as a global leader. Russia is a centralized authoritarian state with limited political freedoms and human rights protections. This makes it difficult for Russia to build alliances and partnerships based on shared democratic values and norms. Number 4. International standing. Russia's international standing has been significantly damaged by its annexation of Crimea, its involvement in the conflict in eastern Ukraine, and allegations of interference in foreign elections and cyber attacks. These actions have led to sanctions and other measures against Russia by the international community, undermining its position as a global leader. While Russia will undoubtedly continue to play a significant role in global affairs, it is unlikely to become the new world order in the way that the United States has been in the post-World War II era. The nature of the global system is evolving, and other countries such as China are likely to emerge as increasingly influential players. Nuclear war. Every few days, Russia's rhetoric around the potential use of nuclear weapon in Ukraine seems to shift back and forth. One day, Russian military leaders are discussing plans for the use of a tactical nuclear weapon. Another day, Kremlin is stating explicitly that a nuclear war should never be fought, and that using such weapons would have no political or military value. While there are numerous rungs on the metaphorical escalation ladder before the nuclear question would come into play, there are at least 3 distinct scenarios for Russia's use of a nuclear weapon, each of which differs in rationale and likely consequences. Scenario 1. A signaling device. Rationale. Russia could test nuclear weapons as a warning to Ukraine and its supporters, demonstrating both its resolve and capability. Actions speak louder than words, so testing a nuclear weapon could drive home Russian President Vladimir Putin's past statements that this special military operation in Ukraine is becoming an existential conflict for the Russian state. Likely effects. A nuclear demonstration would not tilt the balance in favor of either side. The efficacy of even Russia's most advanced nuclear weapons is likely already known to relevant Western governments, and a test likely would not incentivize Ukraine to capitulate because Kyiv already feels that the conflict is existential. Russia's recent aerial bombing campaigns have shown that, if anything, a nuclear demonstration is likely to harden Kyiv's resolve and engender more sympathy and support from the West. The humanitarian and environmental effects are also likely to be minimal, as the test site would be chosen with those impacts in mind. One unwanted side effect could concern Russia's relations with China. China has tried to toe a careful line in maintaining the strong personal relationship between President Xi Jinping and Putin without kindling outright hostility from the West. China has thus far been sympathetic to Russia's broader, strategic goals in Ukraine, but a Russian nuclear test could put Beijing in a tough position. Xi recently stated China's opposition to any country using or threatening to use nuclear weapons. Scenario 2. A battlefield weapon. Rationale. Russia could use nuclear weapons against Ukrainian military or energy infrastructure targets in an attempt to weaken the country's will and damage its military capacity. Tactical nuclear weapons have a smaller payload and more precise targeting, which makes them conducive to battlefield use. Russia has about 2,000 tactical nuclear weapons that it could deploy by plane, missile, or ship. It would most likely use the short-range Iskander-M missile system. These weapons have yields of 1 to 50 kilotons, the largest of which would have a blast radius of about half a kilometer wider than the bomb the US military dropped on Hiroshima, Japan at the end of World War II. Likely effects. Russia's use of a tactical nuclear weapon against military targets on the battlefield would be unlikely to halt the Ukrainian counter-offensive. Even if a battlefield nuclear weapon made a land advance more challenging, Ukraine would likely continue its focus on aerial attacks and air defense in ways that have been successful in recent weeks. Moreover, using nuclear weapons on the battlefield would be less effective in shutting down Ukrainian electricity and energy infrastructure than conventional bombing because their higher yield and lower accuracy make them ill-suited for those targets. The environmental effects of tactical nuclear weapons use are difficult to calculate and would depend on warhead yield, detonation height, weather, and local geography. Russia would be cautious not to detonate weapons too close to its own soldiers or occupied territory. China would almost certainly be forced to publicly denounce such weapons use by Russia, and the resulting distancing would have repercussions for future China-Russia cooperation more broadly. Scenario 3. A weapon of terror. Rationale. Russia's most escalatory option is also the least likely, using a strategic nuclear weapon against Ukrainian civilian targets or Ukraine's neighboring international partners. Such an attack would be hundreds of times more powerful than one that used tactical weapons. Russia's aim would be to weaken Western resolve, and it would likely target military installations or infrastructure relevant to the Ukrainian war effort, such as arms supply lines in Poland or weapons storage facilities in the Baltics. Bombing a major Western city such as Paris or Los Angeles, by comparison, would only elicit a stronger Western reaction. This is also the scenario where a Western nuclear response is most likely. Likely effects: using a nuclear weapon against civilian or non-Ukrainian targets would certainly generate a retaliatory response from Western states. The United States would be unlikely to default to nuclear weapons given its confidence in the demonstration of resolve that would result from a swift, sophisticated conventional response, which would also be tactically effective. Eastern European members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, who could fear becoming Russia's next target, would be particularly interested in ensuring that the alliance mobilizes a response that sends a strong signal to Russia that nuclear use will never help it achieve expansionist objectives. Looking at these three scenarios and the likely effects, do you think there's a chance we might have a nuclear war on our hands? Now we have come to the end of today's video. Which of the two do you think is most likely to happen? What allies does Russia need to champion the New World Order? Is there any player we aren't considering? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. If you want to find out if we are witnessing the end of Russia as a world power, tap the bell icon to get notifications about our next video. Do well to subscribe and share it with your friends. We'll see you in the next video. Bye.